Spectre are one of the most recognisable parts of the world of 007. Spectre have appeared in several James Bond films. For many people, Spectre are James Bond's most notorious adversaries. Spectre have, in recent times, made a return to the cinematic world of Bond. Thunderball, which was first published in 1961, was where it all began for Spectre. So how is the first Bond adventure to feature Spectre? SMERSH, which had effectively been the central threat for MI6 and Bond, are established as having been shut down. SMERSH were a pretty well-written threat, especially in From Russia with Love. Due to the calming Cold War at this time, Fleming opted to write out SMERSH from the Bond novels. Spectre are a pretty good threat, though at times they do seem a bit too similar to SMERSH. Spectre makes for a refreshing threat on the whole. It's a nice detail that M and Bond hadn't heard of them. It makes Spectre seem more dangerous if the head of MI6 hasn't even heard of them. Blofeld appears briefly, which was great. Blofeld should be a mysterious presence that we know little about. While Blofeld's dialogue and impact in his scenes is fantastic, we do unfortunately learn too much about him. Blofeld's birth date and origins are revealed in an expository chapter. Blofeld's identity and origins should have been concealed, much like the original film timeline. Felix Leiter makes an appearance in Thunderball, just when I thought the character wouldn't be used again, at least not prominently. His brief appearance in Goldfinger was decent, though it didn't leave much of a lasting impression. Once again, the dynamic between Leiter and Bond is fantastic. This is the best Leiter appearance for some time, perhaps due to the unexpected degree in which Leiter actually appears. He's very involved in the story. In that sense, Thunderball very much feels like an early Bond novel, when Leiter was included more regularly and more prominently. Bond and Leiter make for a great double act. This is one of the strongest aspects of the story. Emilio Largo is a reasonably well-written villain. He gets a decent amount of involvement within the story, and his presence makes him seem like a genuinely threatening individual. However, he's just nowhere near as memorable as some of the other great Bond villains. He doesn't come close to the likes of Red Grant, Sir Hugo Drax, or Auric Goldfinger. Largo, comparatively, just seems a bit mild. Well written, yes, but from what has come before, he can only seem like a bit of a letdown. If Thunderball was the second or third novel, maybe things would be better, but as the ninth novel, you expect a more interesting villain. The scope and scale in Thunderball is really well realised. At this point, we're very much used to Bond travelling all over the world to exotic locations, but in Thunderball, that aspect at least is done very well. The culture and lifestyle of the Bahamas is well realised here. Domino Vitale is a great Bond girl. She isn't written in a typical Bond girl fashion. Rather, Domino is involved in the story and is actually integral to the plot. There are times, however, when Domino is neglected and doesn't appear for sizable chunks of the story, but as a character, Domino worked fairly well. The third act of Thunderball is really entertaining. It's well paced, the action is punchy, and on the whole, it acts as a surprisingly brutal conclusion to the novel. The first act sets the stage nicely, but during the middle of the book, Thunderball just grinds to a halt. The writing is still good, but there's a huge lack of urgency, making you wonder why the book isn't much shorter. It's no secret amongst Bond fans that the authorship of Thunderball was for a long time very much disputed. Thunderball began life as a novelisation for an unused Bond film script, and it soon morphed and developed into the version that was published in 1961. Fleming was initially credited as the sole writer, but after a legal wrangle, Kevin McClory and Jack Whittingham were added as co-writers. But this legal wrangle carried on, eventually resulting in Spectre's very exclusion from the official film series until 2015, that is. So aside from Thunderball's fairly decent plot, there's a lot to talk about, though it mainly concerns the real-world work on the book itself. Thunderball very much reminded me of the early Fleming Bond novels, perhaps due to Leiter's large involvement in the story, but either way, this novel feels very much in the same vein as Live and Let Die or Diamonds Are Forever, though Thunderball is possibly more outlandish. Thunderball starts off very well. The Spectre meeting room was fantastic, although Bond's stay at the health bar was ultimately padding. The middle section of the novel is where the story really falters. The momentum just isn't there, and this is where I start to lose interest. Fortunately, things improve in the third act. The final clash between Spectre and Bond is surprisingly brutal and made for an enjoyable conclusion. Thunderball was, on the whole, a good read, but with just another draft or two, it could have been one of the best Fleming novels. The next Bond novel I shall be looking at will be The Spy Who Loved Me, and I shall see you then. Bye.